Holly is Thank you. Amy is the Intervention Program Director at UAY, and she comes from the Iowa City School District, where she used to be a student and family advocate. So she was focused on supporting students with mental health concerns. She is trained in dialectic behavioral therapy and critical incident stress management, and is passionate about mindfulness and breathwork in her approach to self-care. Take it away for us, Amy. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Ellie. I am going to share my screen. We practiced this. Hopefully it will work. Yay. Everybody can see that? Awesome. So we're going to have a conversation today about burnout and secondary trauma. Like Ellie said, I've been with United Action for Youth since August 1st. And previous to that, I was at the school district, and I didn't realize how burnt out I was until I moved to United Action for Youth. At the school district, being an SFA for 1,600 students at City High, it was go, 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 go. From the time I got there at 8:15 until the time I left at 4:15, I didn't have a chance to eat. I rarely had a chance to go to the bathroom. It was just students all the time. And for me, that was just how we did business. Students needed me. I was there to provide support, and that's what we did. When I got to UAY and I had a little, still busy, still important work, just a different pace. I was like, at first I was like, I'm doing something wrong here. Like, I'm not being productive. And somebody had to sit me down and say, you're being really productive. You're just not burnout. This is a typical pace. You're not at the school district pace. So I'm so thankful to be at UAY. We, self-care and attention to stress and burnout is at the forefront of what we do as a staff. We're always checking in on each other. We have self-care sluggers that are in our department, so that if we notice that anybody's kind of looking like they're on the brink, we can step in and see what we can do to help. So I'm super excited to be here. Self-care, trying to avoid burnout is super important to me, and it's hard in the work that we do. So let's check in first. Let's see how everybody's doing today. I'm going to show a picture on this next slide. Just throw in the chat. What slide represents how you're feeling today? So you might have to move your pictures around a little bit for this to get an idea of what all the slides are. I'm going to open my chat so I can see. How are y'all feeling today? I am 100% a 3 as well. We're kind of all over the place. I love it when people are ones. I'm like, yay for the ones. They keep us going most days, those ones. Yeah, but we're all across the board today. And that, I'm sure, has to do with a ton of things. It might have some stuff to do with work, personal life. For me, it's a little bit the heat. This freaks me out to be this hot in May. It's a little bit things that I have going on this afternoon. So all kinds of reasons that we might feel this way. I think it's really important, though, if I'm feeling like a 3 today, to be mindful of that and to know what that does for my body. So I'm a little bit stressed out because I'm not going to be in the office for the next couple of days, and I'm already anticipating coming back on Monday and knowing all the things that I'm going to have to deal with on Monday. So knowing that and knowing that that makes me anxious, I spent all this morning just getting ready to be gone so that it would be a little bit easier when I get back, hopefully. Every time I check in with my staff or a group of students that I'm working with, I always start with a check-in. I think it's so important to know where people are at and meeting people where they're at. So if there's somebody that's really tired or really stressed out, we can get that out in the open right now, talk about it, and then we can move on from there. But if I'm number 3 today and my supervisor comes in and talks to me and I'm a little off, that just leaves her wondering what's going on. So I think being mindful of where we are and then checking in with staff is so important. Thank you for doing that with me. All right, so this is from the American Academy of Pediatrics, but it is, I think it is important for all of our jobs. We carry stories with us. And the longer we're doing our work, the more stories we have. And we all have success stories. We all have things that we're super excited about, but we also have heartbreaking stories. We've seen heartbreaking things. And as much self-care that we do, those are in our fibers. Those people's stories are in our fibers. And so I think it's really important to know that we're carrying those stories with us as we move about our day and our weekends and when we're not in the office. So let's talk specifically about burnout. So in 1975, burnout was defined as three pieces: emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, and a decreased sense of accomplishment. These all seem super dire, right? Emotional exhaustion is just fatigue. It's just being tired. I've heard teachers, when I worked at City High, I heard teachers talk about this all the time. I'm just exhausted, and I'm exhausted from caring. I've been doing this for too long. I've been a teacher for too long, and I'm just emotionally exhausted. The second one gets a little deeper. I'm so exhausted that I just don't even have empathy anymore. I don't even care anymore. And then that goes along with what I'm doing doesn't even matter. I'm just a piece of the cog, and what I do doesn't matter. This is dire. That's why it's important. This is when you're going to probably give in your 2 weeks notice. That's why it's important to get ahead of this. We're all going to feel that emotional exhaustion, 100%. I had a really hard day on Monday, and I just came home completely exhausted. But when you start feeling that depletion of empathy or that sense of futility, that's when we know that we need to step in. All right, let's talk a little bit about how our body responds to stress. So there's a stress cycle that everybody's body goes through, and we're just going to pretend like we're hiking out at Ryerson Woods. It's one of my favorite places to go when I need some self-care. I grab my dog and I go out to Ryerson. I don't think there are any bears out there, but let's just pretend like I'm walking on the trail and a bear steps in front of me. Instantly, my body gets into the stress cycle, and stress can be good. I need my body to revert into the stress cycle so that I can get rid of that bear, so I can do the best to avoid that bear. So epinephrine and endorphins just flood our bloodstream. That increases our heartbeat. It increases our blood pressure. Our heart beats faster. Our breath quickens. Our muscles tense. Our sensitivity to pain decreases. Our attention is alert. We are vigilant. Our brain, the prefrontal cortex of our brain, shuts down a little bit. That's the logic, the pros and cons. That's the problem solving. That shuts down a little bit, and our amygdala is on fire. That's our fight or flight part of our brain, that little almond-shaped small piece of our brain that's tucked right in the middle of our brain. That's the here and now. So our long-term memory, everything shuts down except anything in your memory that provides context to what's happening right now. So if a bear steps in front of me, I might remember a TV show that I watched where a bear attacked somebody, and I'm able to think about what that person does, but everything else kind of floats away. Our senses are heightened, and other organs are deprioritized. We're all ready to either fight that bear, climb a tree maybe, cut through the trail and get to my car as fast as possible, whatever we need. So then what happens? Our body's ready and we run, right? We run. We outrun the bear. We get back to our car. We're still breathing heavily. Our body's still in that stress cycle. And then we go back to work, or we go back home and we tell the story. Right? We tell the story. I was at Ryerson Woods. This bear jumped out. I had to run. I tripped on a log, but I got up. I just made it to my car in time. I shut the door. The bear jumped on my car, but I made it. And everybody at your house is like, oh my gosh, you made it. Everybody's clapping. They're giving you hugs. You're so happy. That's the restoration period. That's your body. Then all of a sudden your body's getting all these signals that you're safe. You've closed the stress cycle. Okay. But we don't often find bears in our path. right? It's not off. I've never actually been to Ryerson. I've seen a few snakes in my path, but no bears in my path. But we come across stressors every single day. They might be external. They might be clients. They might be coworkers. It might be somebody cutting us off in traffic. They might be internal, self-criticism, doubt, body image issues, mental health issues. But we come across stressors every day. Our body doesn't necessarily know what's a bear and what's somebody cutting us off. So our body is going to react the same way. Different levels. Obviously, my body's not going to go into that hyper awareness quite to the level if somebody cuts me off versus I see a bear in my tracks, but it's still flooding your all of your organs in your bloodstream with stress hormones, with cortisol. Oftentimes, though, we don't get a chance to close that cycle. And so what happens is our body just is chronically in an activated stress state. We're just soaked in stress juice, right? And if we don't find a way to close that stress cycle, that causes long-term problems. It causes an increase in blood pressure. It messes with your digestion. It lowers your immune function, and you have a lot of hormonal imbalances. I'm not going to get into it too much, and I'm sure that a lot of you know this, but it's the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. So the sympathetic nervous system is the fight or flight. That's what happens. All of those physiological things that I mentioned when we saw that bear, that's the sympathetic nervous system. The parasympathetic nervous system is the antithesis of that. It's the rest and digest. It's the calm. And there's ways to hack into that parasympathetic nervous system that we'll talk about in a little bit. But the key is on this stress cycle right here on the screen is the restoration part. We're all going to get stressed. We all have to mobilize. And then somehow that stress is going to get taken care of, right? So I might finish a project. I might finish this presentation, right? I was a little stressed before this. When I'm done with this presentation, I'll be deactivated, but the hormones are still in there. I need to somehow tell my body that everything's safe now, it's good, and we can move on. The way to close the stress cycle is by doing one of these things. There's a lot of ways, but these are just some ways that I put up there. So I'm going to give you a quick example. Monday, I had a really, really rough day at work. I ended my day at the courthouse and I had to testify and I had to break some confidentiality. It was harm to self, so I was okay to do it, but I just felt really icky to me. And the hearing ended up that it ended up on a positive note, but it was just super stressful. And then I had to leave right from then and go give a presentation. And so then I was up doing this presentation, and then I got home, and what I wanted to do is just go into my bedroom, shut off the light with a glass of wine and just lay there. But I had been preparing for this presentation. So I thought, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to try this out. I'm going to try to close my stress response. And so instead, I asked my son to go out and play basketball. And then when we got done, we had a little dinner, and then we picked a movie and we watched it together. No dark rooms, no wine. It was just, I had some physical movement. I had some laughter. I did have some tears on the way home after the court hearing. But I was able to close that stress cycle, and I didn't bring that to work with me the next day. It was over, it was done. I still was able to debrief with my executive director and kind of tell her how it ended up, but I didn't do it with a hypervigilant body. Physiologically, I was able to close that. And I think that is so important. I talked earlier about the parasympathetic nervous system. A major part of that is called the vagus nerve. It's the longest nerve in the body. It's called vagus because it's a wandering nerve. It's a vagabond nerve, and it goes from the base of your skull all the way down to your tailbone. And it's responsible for all of kind of your rest and digest. If you can activate the vagus nerve, you can slow your heart rate. You can lower your blood pressure. You can calm your amygdala, cool your amygdala. If you can find a way to do that right after a stressful situation or before you before your body's too soaked in those stress hormones, you can shut off that. You can cut off the stress cycle right in its tracks. One of the ways to do that is to breathe. Breathing, taking deep breaths, activates your vagus nerve. Humming or singing activates your vagus nerve. Putting cold, really cold ice packs on your temples activates your vagus nerve. You can, I've turned my watch on to, I've gotten my heart rate up, and then I've turned my heart monitor on for my watch, and I've done, you can lower your heartbeat by many, many beats per minute just by using your breath. We're going to do a little breath work at the end. It's one of my favorite things to do. But right now, we're going to stop and we're going to have a little mindful moment. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second. And feel free to, if you have your camera on and you want to turn it off, you can. I'm going to ask you to close your eyes and just follow, just do what I'm asking you to do. And then we'll come back when I'm done and talk about it. If you're okay leaving your stuff on, that's totally okay. Okay. So I want you to close your eyes, realizing that thoughts are going to come in and out of your head. That's okay. I want you to imagine your thoughts as clouds. Acknowledge that they're there and then let them go. We want to think about our brain as being Teflon, so things kind of slide off of it instead of Velcro. So if you need a visualization, that's how you can visualize it. Notice your breath. Settle yourself in your seat, wherever you are. And I'm just going to ask you to do some noticing. Can you feel your hair touching your head? Can you feel your belly rising and falling as you breathe? Can you notice your arms touching your body? Can you feel the bottoms of your feet? Can you picture something far away? Can you feel the space between your eyes? Can you feel how one arm is heavier than the other? Can you feel your face getting soft? Okay, come back to your breath. You can turn your cameras back on if you had them on. And either in the chat or unmute yourself, that's even better. Tell me, first of all, if that was difficult or if it was easy. Tell me how you were feeling during that exercise.
Well, I have never been asked if I can feel the hair touching my head. That was weird.
Could you?
kind of, but then I got like hung up on where it is on my shoulders and that kind of like
Sure.
this I feel a lot, right? But
Mhm,
like up here, never. So
mhm.
that was really strange.
How about Cassie, you feel relaxed?
Yeah, I try and meditate probably once a day, so that felt pretty normal and just a good escape during the middle of the day.
Mhm. That's good. My boss always says, our executive director always says, if you are waiting, if you're talking about self-care, what do you do for self-care at the end of the day? Or what do you do for self-care when you're stressed? It's too late. That you shouldn't be doing self-care after work. It's great. I'll grab my dog and go to Ryerson and have a walk after work. That's great. But if I'm not practicing self-care throughout the day, then it's probably not going to be as helpful. Anybody else have any comments about how that went? Was it hard? Did it feel weird? It's a grounding exercise, right? So what the goal is to take you out of worrying about the past or the future and bring you to the here and now. And any way you can do that, even if it's for a few minutes, is helpful for that stress cycle. So whether it's meditation like Cassie does, or just doing that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 5 things I see, 4 things I hear, that's an easy one. Stopping and listening to a song that you really like, anything that kind of brings you back to the present. And if you can do that throughout the day, Molly didn't realize how tense I was. Absolutely. Sometimes it's only when we slow down that we realize how tense we are, right? Like that's exactly how I was at City High. I had no idea how stressed out I was until I wasn't. And then I was like, holy moly, I can't believe I survived that. I love City High. I love the staff. It was a hard job. So yes, thank you. Thank you for indulging me in that. I really hope that you can find something that you can do. That took us a minute, am I right? It wasn't that much time. And people felt more relaxed. You were able to kind of get in touch with your body, and that's so helpful. All right. We're going to do something else toward the end, hopefully, if we have time. Okay. So getting back to safety, stopping that stress response, or not stopping it, but actually completing it, right? Because stresses can be a good thing. So we're completing the stress response. We're letting our body know that the stress is over, or it's over for now, right? At the end of the day, something stressful might have occurred, and you have to tend to it tomorrow. That happens, that's life. But we can stop the stress, we can close that stress cycle for now so that we can come back to it refreshed in the morning. It's our mindful moment. Okay. And then we go from burnout to secondary trauma. So burnout are those feelings. I feel a lack of empathy. I feel like what I'm doing is futile. I feel really tired and fatigued. Secondary trauma is much like PTSD. That's when it starts to affect your body. So unlike burnout, these are actual physical symptoms of when people hear other people's trauma over and over and over again. I just did a presentation last week for new recruits for the police departments and sheriff's office in Johnson County. And we talked a lot about hearing people's stories and the secondary trauma that comes with being in law enforcement, and how to mitigate that before it happens. So this is what it can look like. I'm not going to read all of this to you because most of you have, unless you need to. If somebody needs me to read it because they're not in front of their screen, definitely throw that in the chat and I will. But, so it affects all dimensions of our body. And I know when I'm stressed out, my concentration is lower. I forget things. I'm often preoccupied with my job. I'm at home and my husband's talking to me and he's like, "You're not here, are you?" And I'm like, "Absolutely, I'm not here. I am thinking about something else." So you're kind of preoccupied with things that are going on. The emotional stress of it, for sure. And I think that the guilt, and then as we then we become numb, and then we become helpless. kind of is one of, it gets worse over time. And then I imagine that everybody has had some behavioral symptom. I don't sleep well when I'm really stressed. I don't eat, but I have a friend who is way hungrier, right? And then when you get lower, you get that hypervigilance, the startle response. So every little thing kind of makes you jumpy. And then physical, we talked about that earlier. So if you're constantly bathed in stress juices and cortisol and endorphins, then you're going to increase your heart rate. It leads to heart issues. It leads to stroke. It leads to impaired immune system. Do you ever notice, somebody just said to me this the other day, that she was like, I don't get it. Whenever I have a week off for vacation, I get sick every single time. Like I take a week off and then 2 days in, I'm sick. That happens because your body finally, you release some of that, and then your immune system is lowered, and then you get sick. So she's like, every time I'm not even going to take a vacation this summer, because every time I take one, I get sick. So I'm just going to work. Like, no, you're taking a vacation, and we're going to decrease your stress here at work too, so that doesn't happen. All right. So this is another little interactive. You need your phone for this. Okay. We're going to do this. Oops, not going to. Hopefully this will pop up. We didn't practice this, so let's cross our fingers. Okay, here it is. So you're going to go to, and you can click open another screen if you're on your computer too, but you're going to go to www.menti.com, MENTI.com. And then you're going to put this code in, 6431364. And I just want to know how you self-care. How do you do it? What do you do? And hopefully this will pop up as we're doing it. Maybe I have to reload it. Oh, there it is. And keep them coming. Love it. I love somebody else is out there hiking with their puppy. That's awesome. So you guys, you all have things that you do. Just on a scale of 1 to 10, or just raise your hand if you do these things with regularity. Do you do them regularly, or do you wait till you're stressed? Good, good. I love that. And I love also that somebody put up there that they use medication. Me too, right? I mean, there are some times that that closing that stress cycle, and you need medication for that, right? I'm taking anxiety medications. There's something in my physiology that cortisol just wants to kind of zoom through my body more than the average person. So I take some medication. It helps me. I also have to do a lot of these other things. But the medication has made a huge difference. Good. Thank you. That was fun. I'm glad it worked. All right. Now getting back to this is going to be okay. Perfect. Okay. So things to consider. Do what works for you. I'm not for sure if it was on there, but a lot of times people will say, I journal. That journaling really, really helps me. Journaling does not help me at all. It makes me really stressed out. I'm constantly worrying about what I'm saying and like if I'm saying it correctly. That doesn't work for me. So do what works for you. make sure that you have a balance. Even if you're not an outdoor person, I think connecting with nature is really, really important. It's very grounding. Even going outside, even walking barefoot in the grass for a little bit. I think it's super important to get connected with nature. And that might be having an animal at home. Studies show that just petting a dog, that's why therapy dogs are so important. Just petting a dog can lower your blood pressure. I'm sure a kitty can too, but I'm a dog person. Any kind of creative expression. I am not creative. I don't believe I am creative at all, but if I can blast out, put a singable song on the radio on my way home from work and just sing an old Hall & Oates song, that's gonna make me happy. Communicate. I know we go home and we probably communicate to family or partners or people outside of your organization that are in your life, but it's so important to communicate inside your organization as well if you're feeling stressed out. I just had a staff person that works with me say, I'm struggling today. I need to take a mental health day so I can come back fresh tomorrow. Absolutely. I would so much rather somebody communicate with me and tell me that they're struggling than not and end up in burnout or end up having to quit or leave the job. And then I think it's so important to plan. I think all of those things that you put on the Mentimeter were perfect. And sometimes the things that we do for self-care are pushed to the very bottom because we're working with clients, we're working with people who need us, and we're helpers, we're in the helping field. And so we put others in front of us. And so just making a plan for, on Thursdays, I'm going to go out to lunch with my sister, or on Mondays after work, I'm going to go for a hike, whatever that might be. All right. And then I'll recognize, sometimes successes are tiny. Sometimes successes don't seem like they're a lot. But every time you get a chance to recognize the success, it's so important to do it. It releases happy chemicals into our brain. All right. Oh, avoid avoidance. That was my thing. That was my main thing at City High, is I avoided it. I avoided everything until it was too late. So putting things to the side for a little while, if I'm in a meeting with a client and their story is really triggering for me, I might have to avoid those feelings for a little bit for while I'm in that meeting with the client. But as soon as I possibly can, I need to debrief. I need to talk about it. I need to do something about it, because if you just keep shoving it down and thinking you're avoiding it, you're wrong. It's eventually going to come back up to haunt you. We already talked about planning ahead, and always reach out. If it's getting in the way, if your stress with work is getting in the way of your life, or it's damaging you in ways that are kind of outside the normal realm, always seek mental health support. Talk to your doctor. So this I do with all of my staff during supervision. I want to know what it looks like when they're stressed. It's different for everyone. Some people if my office door is closed and you don't see me for a while, that's, I'm probably stressed. Or if I'm super hyper and drinking a ton of coffee, that means I'm stressed. And then what's their stress reliever? Sometimes when you're in a crisis, when you're kind of feeling burnout, and I might be able to say, hey, why don't you go home and take your dog for a walk? Or why don't you take a half hour and go sit outside and read your book? If I know what their stress relievers are, I can do a gentle reminder, right? And then I always have some kind of this, don't forget, mine is on my door, it's we can do hard things. That's my little mantra. And so for these, I encourage people just to put them on their door. I think it's really good to model self-care. And so when we have clients coming in and out of our offices, I like that everybody has their self-care plan out. Not everybody likes to do that because there might be some personal things on there, and that's okay. But I think it's really important for me as a supervisor to know these things about the people who do the work with me. Okay, so we can do a breathing exercise, or we can open it up for discussion, whatever feels best. Does anybody have any
Can we do both?
Yeah, yeah, we can. We can. Okay. All right. So, oops, we're going to do that next. So don't be thinking about that while we're breathing. Okay. All right. So we're going to do elevator breathing. It will take 2 or 3 minutes. Not a big deal. I just wanted to give you one more idea to activate that vagus nerve. So again, I'm going to have you close your eyes, focus on your breath. Just take normal in and out breaths. We take about 30,000 breaths a day, and we don't often stop and think about our breath. So we're going to take about 2 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes here today to think about our breath. So first, if you will, I want you to bring your attention to your nose and feel the breath going in and out of your nose. Just notice it. Maybe you can notice that the breath is cooler going in and warmer going out. Maybe it's causing a little tickle inside your nose when you really focus on that. Is take a few breaths with your focus on your nose. And with your next breath, I want you to move down and focus on your throat. Notice the breath in your throat. Oftentimes people need to clear their throat during this because you don't focus on that very often, and that's okay if you do. If your mind is wandering anywhere but your breath, that's okay. Bring it back and just focus on that breath in your throat. And your next breath, move to your lungs. Bring your focus and your attention to your lungs. Fill up your lungs with as much oxygen as you can fit in there. Notice how that feels. You probably feel a stretch across your rib cage. Exhale. See if you can feel that oxygen going into your lungs, out into your body. And then finally, we're going to move down to our bellies. We use about 75% of our lung space when we breathe in. The way to get the most oxygen into our lungs is to belly breathe. So if you will, I want you to put your hand on your belly. And your next inhale, I want you to try to push your belly out as much as you can. That means your diaphragm's moving down. It's making space for a whole bunch of oxygen in your lungs. Notice how that feels different. And give yourself 3 or 4 big belly breaths. And then with your next 4 breaths, I want you to move back up. So your first one, pay attention to your belly. Your second breath, draw your attention to your lungs. Your third to your throat. And that last breath to your nose. And then slowly open your eyes. And if you feel relaxed, or if you yawn, or if your body feels heavy, you've just activated your vagus nerve. So good job, you're doing it right. You should be a little sleepy, a little tired. Heartbeat should be nice and low. Thank you. The last thing that I would say is to be able to answer that question. What's your why? Why are you doing what you do? I saw all the organizations that you all are from, and it's hard work and it's important work. And sometimes I think we get so stressed out and on the verge of burnout with our work that we forget our why. So I have mine on a little note card inside my desk drawer. And when I'm starting to feel burnout, when I'm starting to feel like I might have to take a day, and I still do take a day every once in a while, don't get me wrong, but I can just open my desk drawer and it's a constant reminder. Or sometimes I'm just digging in my desk drawer trying to find a highlighter or a pen, and all of a sudden my little note card's there with my why on it, and it's just grounding for me. So I think that that is a really great activity to do it in all staff as well. Give everybody a note card and have them write their why, and just have them tuck it away in a little place in their office, just as a reminder. All right, I think that was my last slide. Any questions or comments or anything for me?
This is Molly. I just had a question about the self-care plan.
Yeah.
Because you work at UAY,
Mhm.
did you do something like this before that with the people that you supervise? And if you did, if you didn't, what did you find? How did you find improvement with your supervision?
When I was at City High, I didn't supervise anyone. So this has been a whole new ball of wax for me, which has been a very huge learning curve. But I did do self-care plans with students a lot. And I think the action of, we can all say, yeah, we do this and we do this and we do this when we're stressed, but the action, the intentional, mindful action of actually writing it down was really helpful for me and with students. And this, when I first started at UAY, and I was meeting with the people that I was going to supervise just to introduce myself and talk about supervisory skills. One of the people that I supervise actually gave her self-care plan to me and said, you need to know this about me. And I was like, oh, this is the coolest thing ever. That it was so, it hadn't really occurred to me. I had done it with my students that I worked with. I don't know if I would have done it with staff, except that somebody just gave me her plan and said, you need to know this about me. I get really stressed sometimes, and this is how you can help. And that was like, that is brilliant. I'm going to do that with everyone.
Amy, I have a question about closing the stress cycle, right? And that circle. You gave us some ways to do that, but how do you know that that's closed, right? Like, how do you know that you're able to move on to the next thing?
I think that your body will tell you that it's close. So how do you feel when you're stressed? And so I think that's one of the really important things and I used to talk to students about this all the time. You have to know, you have to be mindful of your body. You have to realize how your body carries emotion. So maybe that's the first step. When I feel stressed, this is what happens inside my body. Because sometimes we might just be like, gosh, I'm really tired. Like I have been tired for a few days now. Maybe I'm catching a bug, or maybe I'm coming down with something. What's really happened is that you're just really stressed out and haven't taken care of it. So really sitting down and doing some self-reflection about what is it that you feel when you're stressed, and then you'll know when you're not. But I think that's a really good, important question. Is sometimes I think we just go along not even having, I'll go back to when I was stressed out at City High again. I didn't know I was stressed until I wasn't. But now I'm much more mindful of what's happening in my personal life and in my body when I am stressed, so that I can acknowledge it and point it out and take care of it right away? It's a great question. I will put a plug in for this book. It's called Burnout, The Secret of Unlocking the Stress Cycle. So some of the things that I talked about in here, like actually closing the stress cycle, is in this book. This book is specifically, it's written by 2 women that are in the helping field, and it's directed towards women, but it's not anything that wouldn't apply to anybody who read it. But it is a really great book, and I'm not all the way through it yet, but I have like sticky notes and highlights. It's been really good. And they also have some like some things that you can do, like some little exercises and things that you can do in here as well. It's good. In here they say negative emotions, stress, unwanted emotions. I wouldn't call them negative, but unwanted emotions are fine. It's when we get stuck in them. So they kind of use it as a tunnel. Like we go through a tunnel when we're stressed out. If you get stuck in the tunnel, that's the problem. But we don't have to worry about being stressed out. That's being a human being. But we have to get through that tunnel and get to the other side so that we're not stuck in our stress, because that's when it starts affecting your body. So that secondary trauma, if we don't deal with our stress, then it's going to turn into those symptoms of secondary trauma.
Does that book also discuss, like, if you've reached burnout, how long it takes to get through burnout?
Good question. I haven't gotten that far yet.
Okay, because I'm just, I know where I'm at in my cycle at work, and I'm trying to find ways out.
Well, the last chapter is called Grow Mighty. So I assume they're going to talk about how to get out of it.
Yeah, because I don't think they have a month for me to take off of work right now.
No. Taking a day is one thing. Taking a month is a whole other thing.
Any other questions for Amy? All right. Well, thank you so much, Amy. This was wonderful. We will share the recording on the website, and hopefully we'll see you all June 8th for our next ed session on social media.
All right. Thank you.